is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Border War podcast here on the Kansas City Sports Network. We are presented, as always, by Emprise Bank. My name is Jarrett Sutton. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Jeff Hawkins. Jeff, what's going on, man?
Going good, man. Going good. You know, another week down, one more week closer to March Madness and conference tournaments. And, I always love talking this basketball around this time.
That's right. It's even though, Mizzou hasn't won a game yet in SEC play, some things to talk about. I think fans probably want to hear some level of positivity in some games that Mizzou's been in. They've been competitive, but just haven't been able to get over the hump. And 0-6 now, I believe it's in league play. 0-5 in league play after 0-6 after their loss to A&M. They were 0-5 after Florida. But I think we'll dive right in, just kind of get the overall impression of just this team and where it's going. And a lot of fans have asked the question, if you're not winning games, what's the goal and the outcome that you're looking for game to game? We've talked about this before. You and I have never been in these type of situations, so it's tough. You never want to be in these situations. But I think the thing that I still come back to that I've said before is this team continues to fight. They still continue to play hard. Like they don't look disinterested in each other. They look like they're still connected. And I give them credit for that here we are, into January, and the SEC has been a tough road for them. But you look at how they played against Florida, Texas A&M, even the Alabama game. They were in the game at Alabama. It did get out of hand, that final 4 to 5 minute period, but they were in the game on the road. And then they were also in the game against Florida at home and had a chance to win that game and ultimately lost it. But Tamar Bates has been special. That's a big highlight. The freshmen are starting to see a little bit more time. That's something that's been talked about a lot are the freshmen going to see more minutes, get more experience out of this season? And what that looks like, and then ultimately, what's the overall takeaways as we continue to go down this road? So let's start with Tamar Bates. The 36-point output against Florida, he was excellent. It's the best I've seen him play in college. His confidence level's through the roof right now. It's really fun when you see a player. I know you've seen players like this that you kind of always look at them and you think, man, they got so much potential, and you look at their athleticism and their size, and you see it maybe in practice or you saw it in high school. And then when it all kind of comes together and you can see they really believe in themselves now, like they see it like you see it. Yeah. He's starting to take off. He's shooting the ball well. He's getting to the free throw line. He's attacking downhill. He's always been a great defender. I think there's more to come from Tamar Bates too. I still think there's more he can do in terms of defensive rebounding and being a little bit more of an impact defensively, but offensively, he's really carried Mizzou so far.
Yeah. And just, looking, where Tamar Bates started, when he got there to where he is now, I think it all streamed, from confidence and him having that confidence that he put in his back pocket that he can always pull out on good times, bad times. Him having that confidence is definitely shown over this last course of 4 or 5 games with his production on the offensive end. And this is a kid that we've always said we're waiting for him to have that that kind of breakout party or that kind of success, and he's been able to do it again on the offensive end. And you mentioned a really great point as far as Tamar brings a ton of energy. He's a very high energy guy. And you brought it, you brought this out, you put it to light, with the defensive rebounding and, bringing some of that same type of offensive energy on the defensive side as well, too, on the defensive rebounding side as well, too. I think that's an area right now. He's definitely proven that he can play offensively on this level. And I think right now, because Missouri's so close, Missouri's so close when you look at them, they're still competing in these games, 0-6, not the way they want it to look right now in the conference, but they're still competing. And when you got guys that are definitely figuring it out on the offensive end, you want to be able to see them lock down and hunker down a little bit on the defensive end. And I think with Tamar's energy, He's showing that he can bring that energy on the offensive end. I think if he can up that energy a little bit more on the defensive side as well too, other guys, that energy is going to spread out because they're right there. They're a couple stops away from changing the momentum of a game. And you know how it goes with time, game, and momentum. If you can get that momentum on your side, and even if you're down 6, you're down 3, you're down 9, things will start working from you from a confidence standpoint. And I think with Tamar Bates, definitely what he's doing on the offensive end, I think he can still put a little bit more emphasis on that defensive end, because right now he's really showing that he can step up and score the ball for him. And I think right now they also need somebody to say, hey, who's that guy that we can, put our hat on to say we're going to get a stop, or we're going to lean on him to get the team corralled, to get that defensive stop. Because right now, offensively, I think Missouri's good. They're really good right now. But right now, I think the biggest thing for them right now is figuring out how we're going to get our stops. And I think Tamar can be have a big, huge production in that.
Yeah, no question. I think too, where the struggles are, when you watch a Mizzou basketball game, any sort of basketball game, a game is a game of runs. If you can find a rhythm offensively and maintain that, coaches always say put a 40-minute game together. Now, look, it's not always going to go perfect for 40 minutes, but if you can, that's what coaches use timeouts in certain situations. You change your defense, you change your sets and scheme. All those things happen in the 40-minute game. But you look at Missouri got off to a good start against Texas A&M, and then it's a 23-2 run from A&M. And I feel like that's something that we've seen pretty consistently that is a part of the problem too. It's not just the lack of scoring sometimes and the droughts that Missouri will go on offensively, and the free throw discrepancy is massive. It's a big deal in some of these games. Missouri, I don't think they attempted a free throw in the first half. They had 6 free throws in the first half, 4 in the second half. They had 10 total in the game, and A&M goes to the line 37 times. Yeah. And that's not an officiating thing either. I think everybody, when they hear that, is like, oh, it's the whistle. It's not the whistle. It's the style of play sometimes, settling for jump shots and not getting good shots. And then to what you said earlier, I think is a great point, because it's not just when you're missing shots, you hope you can go down and lock up and defend, because there's going to be nights where you don't shoot it well, that you got to rely on your defense to get stops. And they just haven't been able to rely enough on that defense either. And I think you look at some of these box scores that Missouri's had in some of their losses, they're scoring 75, sometimes 80. I mean, they can score it. I think a lot of times we talk about the lulls of the offense, and you do see that from certain games. But I also see struggles on the defensive side of the ball in the same way, where they're not getting stops. They're not closing out a defensive possession with a rebound because they struggle on the glass. And all of that is to say, this is why they are where they are. It's not really just one area. It kind of blends together, where it's a little bit of both, right? Where they struggle on offense, and then all of a sudden they're struggling on defense at the same time. Or they're catching fire on defense and they're getting some stops. They can't get a bucket, like we saw in the Memphis game that they lost, where they got off to a great start in the Memphis game, had a big lead, and then all of a sudden they didn't get up. They couldn't buy one the rest of the game, and their defense was solid, and then all of a sudden it broke. And that's, to me, what I'm seeing in a 40-minute game. There's just, it's like a pendulum. It's just too many highs and lows right now. To try to find that consistency is something you just got to have when you're in league play.
Yeah, and league play, you mentioned it, league play. When you get in that league play, you have to have a backbone, I would say, to defense. I think coaches, when you're making shots, it makes things a lot easier. But I think the true testament of a team is who are you when you're not making shots? And, that just automatically goes to the defensive end. And Missouri, and we said that positive side, they're right there. I mean, they're right there. They're one a kill. They're a kill away from breaking out. I mean, 3 stops in a row. You give them 3 more stops, 3 more extra possessions on the offensive end with a stop. And if it's a successful stop, I mean, that changes the game. That could make a team go down anywhere from 5 to 9 points or 6 to 9 points and gain you 6 to 9 points. That can change a ball game dramatically. But I really believe if Missouri can definitely find that aggression. They've shown improvement on the offensive end. We, like you said, we know they can score. They can put the points up. But it's, if we're scoring, how are we letting our defense, our opponent score as well too? Are we giving them the same opportunities that we're getting on the offensive end? If that's the case, we need to have somebody on that team that said, hey, on the offensive end, we have the mindset we get whatever we want. We stay that aggressive. But on the defensive end, we don't give them what they want. And I think if they can adapt that mindset, they'll start seeing these games start turning into their favor a little bit, because they're right there. They're just a couple defensive possessions away from turning it around.
Yeah. We'll take a quick break, but before we do that, we wanted to tell you about Home Field Apparel. Home Field is committed to creating incredibly comfortable, officially licensed apparel with vintage college designs. Home Field has a growing collection of over 150 plus colleges to choose from, including your favorite team's unique logos, mascots, and iconic moments to create thoughtfully designed apparel. Shop your latest team's apparel. Head to homefield.com. Please use the promo code KCSN23 for 15% off your first order.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Welcome back to the Border War podcast here on the Kansas City Sports Network. We are presented by Emprise Bank. I am Jarrett Sutton, joined as always by Jeff Hawkins. And Jeff, right when we broke for the break, I did think, just talking about how this team could get over the hump, because I think this team could go two different directions right now. You know, their backs against the wall. They haven't won a league game. We talk about how they continue to fight, like they're competing. They're not giving up in games. To me, I think they said it too publicly that they're close. Players have said that. Coach Gates has said that. I do think they are close. Sometimes the bounce of the ball, sometimes the ball doesn't just bounce your way. Sometimes you have games where you don't shoot it well. There's a lot of factors that are playing a part in some of this stuff. But they can either, you look at their schedule, they have some winnable games coming up where they could break the hump. To me, it feels like they could either break the door down and start playing better and start to see some more wins as they get into league play, or they can go backwards. And I think all of that comes back to staying together. Kind of continuing to battle through adversity, show your toughness in games, play hard, compete. I think that's something Dennis Gates has to continue to send his team. I know it's tough losing games, but if they stick together, they can get over this hump. And they might be able to win more games and start to find a rhythm and start to see the rest of their season kind of finish strong, as opposed to where they are now. It's kind of doom and gloom right now. But if they're close, then sticking together and kind of finding their way through that is really important as we look to the future.
Yeah. I mean, Jarrett, you hit so many great points. And during a stretch like this, when you're not getting the wins that you want, and you still have to try to stay motivated to say, hey, we got a chance to still turn some things around. We're close. What's it going to look like for us, to try to get into the tournament? Obviously, we got to start turning some things around. We got to start bringing it on the defensive end. Obviously, we showed that we can score, but we got to start bringing it, hunkering down on the defensive end if we want to start trying to make a change. Because I feel with this team, it's one of those deals, Jarrett, where either it could spiral out or it could get better. But because they're so close, I have faith. I have that faith because they're so close that the ball could bounce their way. And once you start figuring things out, doesn't matter what your record is when you hit that conference tournament. It's all about where the development is from now to then. And if they can continue to get better and stay checked in, I think this is a team that the wins might not show it, but it could still be a team to where, hey, you can still win your conference tournament. You can still win your conference tournament and get whatever you still want out of this season. But if you come in and say, hey, we're 0-6, there's no chance, we're checking out, that's where it can get a little bit difficult as a coach. And that's where sometimes the coach can say, hey, are my seniors checked out? Are my upperclassmen checked out? Sometimes that's kind of where they, start relying on development and focusing on that younger group. But I don't think this is a team where they're at. That's where they're at right now because they're so close. They're just a couple possessions. They're still trying to figure it out. I think they just figured it out with a couple players, obviously with Tamar Bates, seeing him produce and him showing him have the confidence. They're just a couple players away from still having that same confidence offensively and defensively. But I think this is a team that if they can still stay together, that's the key. Stay together and believe that no matter what our record is, we can still get something out of this season. We can, if we're not getting the wins that we want to, that gives us an automatic bid in the tournament, then let's continue to get better and let's go make that bid become a reality by winning the conference tournament. So there's a lot of things that this team can still do, and they just have to take it one game at a time. They have to take it one game at a time. They can't look to March now. They got to focus on the next game ahead, and they have to continue to move from that. But this is a team that if they figure it out, I keep saying it, they can be dangerous because they're right there. It's not like they're so far away from turning this thing around and being a very scary team. They've shown in the earlier season that they can be a very competitive team and play at a very high level. It's just, can they still believe into that now and get it out?
Yeah, I think too, when you look at a team like this, I've seen teams before, whether it be college or high school or pro level, that there's guys that go through some tough seasons and they do start to quit. They start to give in a little bit. Now it's all about kind of the DNA that's in your locker room. Guys that either love it, that want to compete, that do believe they're close, that are bought in, and doing it for each other too. Like you're a college athlete, and now with NIL in the conversation, and it's a responsibility too. I mean, I think it's something that you go to work every day, and there's going to be some days that are tough. And can you wake up in the morning and it's almost like a life lesson.
Yeah. It is.
Where it's like, hey, man, this isn't going anywhere. You still got games on your schedule you got to play. And I do believe in that. Coach Gates has identified players that are in that locker room that are not going to quit. And I like that. That's why I feel like they are close and they can get over that hump a little bit. I do want to talk, though, about some of the freshmen and some of these younger guys that I do think are an important part of not just this year, but that the direction of where the program is going. Yeah. Jordan Butler got the start at Texas A&M. That's a good sign. He played 24 minutes. He had 5 rebounds. He didn't score the ball really. Hit a 3. Only shot the ball twice, but his experience. Obviously, we talk about Tamar Bates. Tamar Bates is a guy that can return. I'm sure he'll have some thoughts after the season if he continues to play at the level he's playing at. But all signs are pointing to him having another year of college eligibility. Yep. Him returning, and then you got Aiden Shaw, Trent Pierce, and Anthony Robinson. Those are I loop in Aiden Shaw into this because I think he's had some flashes this year, and then he played 5 minutes against A&M. The minutes are a little bit up and down in flux. Some of that is just being consistent and doing what you're supposed to do. And, Coach Gates can play the guys that practice well and give them the best chance to win. But the young players, I think, are really important because I see some flashes with these young guys. They're bumping their heads and they're having games where they struggle and they have moments where they break down like most freshmen do. But I do think there is some growth with some guys. Anthony Robinson is going to be a really good player. We've talked about him before. Trent Pierce isn't playing probably as much as the other freshmen, but he's got such great size. For him, it's just a strength thing, getting stronger, being able to adapt to the college game and the speed of the game, and just being able to be in a game where you can handle yourself from a strength and physicality standpoint at his position. Yeah. But Jordan's a true 7-footer that can stretch the floor. He had a nice block in the A&M game.
Yeah.
I think there are some good things to take from these young guys that might be something we talk about next year when we talk about this season of just this growth. We're seeing it with Tamar Bates. Can some other guys step up and you think, man, look at Trent Pierce now, or look at Aiden Shaw now, or look at Anthony Robinson, or look at Jordan Butler as we keep going into the season. I think that would be a good sign of where, not just what these guys are doing in games, but clearly the practice time, putting in time on their games, putting in time in the weight room, those type of things with your development really matter. And that's why these games and every minute they're on the floor is important as we move forward.
Yeah, and it's a weird time. Kind of once you hit that conference play, those freshmen, on the stat sheet, on the roster, it's going to show freshmen. But what you also want to make sure too is that once you're in that conference play mid to mid or to the mid season of conference play, start to mid season, you want to make sure that those freshmen they feel like to a certain degree that they're really not freshmen. They have that mindset of a sophomore for that transition. And a couple of with a couple of these guys, like with Anthony Robinson, like you mentioned, and Pierce, Butler. Those are some guys right now that they're starting to get a couple minutes now to kind of show what they can do. And it's only going to help them to that transition for that next year. So I think it's really key right now for the development of the program as well too, to give these guys a little shot to see what they can do. Because you just never know what a freshmen are normally always holding back to a certain degree. Something's always being held back, and sometimes they just need a little fire lit, or they just need to see it to believe it. And with these freshmen, they're so talented that over the next couple of years, when Anthony Robinson comes in, he's going to be a great guard replacing Sean East. He's playing behind some guys that have already done it, so he's maybe a little bit passive on that end. What you hope you want to see is these guys really start taking a little ownership now midway season and saying, hey, some of these guys aren't going to be back here next year, and it's going to fall on us. We're not going to be freshmen next year. This is an opportunity for us to grow. And it starts all in the practice mode. If these guys are coming in saying, hey, I'm just a freshman, I'm not really looked upon to produce, that's probably the effort they're going to give when they're in practice. But if they really feel like, hey, I can really contribute, I'm going to be setting myself up for year 2, year 3, and year 4 today in practice, I think that's what will really help, because they really have some good with Pierce Robinson and Butler. Those are really good freshmen that can really help this team throughout the future of this program.
You look ahead for Mizzou, they're at South Carolina coming up here on Saturday, and then they host Arkansas in a whiteout game at Mizzou Arena next Wednesday. They got at Vanderbilt, and then they play A&M again at home. So A&M, who they just played, they get them in 3 games. So some a little bit better matchups, I would say, for Mizzou coming up, and chance to hopefully get off the schneid and win a game in league play. So Jeff, as always, appreciate your time. Good luck with your games this weekend, and we'll be talking next week.